There's definitely some upside that comes to his game, but pump the brakes if you're thinking this guy is walking right in and he's just going to have this great impact for the Lakers. It's not a bad thing if you draft a guy and you say that, hey, in 2 or 3 years, um, in 2 or 3 years, there's going to be an opportunity for this guy to be something. That's not a bad thing. So I want to point that out here because some of these guys are projects and it's going to take a second. And I think it's also very smart and strategic to say, hey, there are some guys that we like a little bit later in the draft that we want to be aggressive on. Let's go try to get one of those players. And if the Lakers identify this guy as the guy, awesome. Then let's go take our chances and let's see what happens from here. Okay, a couple scouts. I want to read. By the way, ESPN does their grades. They do their grades for each one of these players or each team, and they try to give each team a grade. Lakers got on ESPN. They got a B plus for drafting him. So Thiero gets a B plus. Lakers get a B plus for drafting him. Okay, a couple scouts on here. I just want to read because I think sometimes people that are following. By the way, somebody want to give me his right size. I see 6'6". I see 6'8". We'll go 6'7". We'll take the middle ground there on 6'7". Somebody pointed this out earlier, which you are right. He did have a growth spurt. One of the coaches, when I was listening yesterday, was talking about how they saw him when he was at Kentucky, and it was early on, and the guy was like 6'3", 6'3", 6'4", something like that. Then he came back the next year, and they're like, who the hell is that guy? He's like, that's the same dude. He did have a growth spurt. And the only reason why I said you love when some of these guys have growth spurts, let me give you an example. Anthony Davis had a wild growth spurt. This guy was basically more of a point guard than he was a center. And he's got a nice jump shot. I mean, he has point guard characteristics, even though he ended up growing to 6'11" and is obviously a big now in the NBA. But you could tell that, okay, hey, I can hit some jumpers. I got nice range around the basket. I can use the glass. He's got point guard tendencies in the sense that he can handle the ball, all those things. Thiero doesn't exactly have, hey, I grew up as a guard and I got the ability to hit threes because I was 6'2" or 6'3", and that was the only way I stayed on the court. So he did get bigger. He did get taller. They identify him 6'6" to 6'8", whatever the case is. But I think for him, you got to be somewhat of a threat from the outside. You have to be. That's the one area that for him, hopefully over the next couple of years, he just becomes a much better shooter. I guess he had the talent of the first round, but some people were worried because of his shooting ability. Okay, so what did I see here? A couple of the scouts said here, the big knock on Thiero and the reason he wasn't picked in the first round is because he was unable to demonstrate a consistent outside shot during his time in college. But Thiero's measurables are really strong. He's still developing. He's initially a fringe top 100 prospect out of high school, but improved dramatically while playing for John Calipari at both Kentucky and Arkansas. I mentioned to you guys the OG Anunoby quote or the OG Anunoby comp. Jonathan Giovanni, who's Draft Express and does a lot, really just a genius when it comes to college. Here's what he said about Adou Thiero. Brings a unique combination of quickness, power, and explosiveness that makes him a mismatch forward. Can also do some impressive things defensively one-on-one, racking up steals and blocks in bunches. So hopefully that's a good profile for everybody. I know there's some other NBA people out here that really, really like this game. Kevin O'Connor, who covers the NBA, says that's an awesome choice for the Lakers. Had 45 dunks, had 6 games with 10-plus free throws, so he's aggressive again to the basket. Elite athlete who lives in the paint, needs to improve his jumper, but has everything you'd want in an elite role player. So I see a lot of compliments. Now, listen, I understand how I understand how all this works. I do understand, from the perspective of when you get an opportunity to see guys, and it's the first initial reaction of, okay, hey, let's see what this guy can do. I would just say pump the brakes a little bit, only because it's going to take some time for this guy to be in the league, and I don't have a problem with that. I really don't have an issue with that. I think a lot of people are looking at Dalton Connect, and they're looking at Connect and saying, well, Dalton Connect came into the league. There was a lot of hype around him. And then all of a sudden, he just wasn't having the same impact that he was early in the season. That's part of your rookie life. Now, I'm not 100% sure What's going to eventually happen with Dalton Connect? Is he staying with the Lakers? Is he leaving the Lakers? I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to wait and see. But part of me thinks here that from the Connect perspective of things, the fact that he already got traded, Mark Williams just got traded now, he's in Phoenix. I'd be more surprised, I think, if Connect's on the roster than if he's not. Okay, a couple other things I want to point out here real quick. I do have a guest. I mentioned Keith Smith's coming in at 8:30, so I want to kind of keep things moving here. Other players that the Lakers picked up yesterday as well. All right, who'd they get? Eric Dixon out of Villanova on a two-way contract. By the way, that guy's just a bona fide scorer. Let's see what else here. But I think in Villanova last year, if I'm right, averaged 23 points a game, shot 40% from three. He's on a two-way contract. RJ Davis out of North Carolina looks like on a 10-day deal. And then Augustus Marcolonius, if I pronounce that right, out of St. Mary's on a 10-day deal as well. So just something to keep in mind. We'll see what eventually happens with some of these other players. It will take time. We'll see what they end up doing, but this is what all these NBA teams are doing. Guys that don't get drafted then could kind of work with their agents and pick and choose where they could potentially get some opportunities. Obviously, Lakers had some interest in some other players. Okay, I think the main thing for me that I want to get into now that I think is, an important conversation. I see a lot of people writing stuff about Masai Ujiri as well. We'll get into that. We'll definitely get into that as far as Masai Ujiri goes. We'll talk a little bit about that and what that means. We'll do that a little bit later in the show, and I'll ask Keith about that. Okay, so you know what the Lakers did not do yesterday in that second round? They didn't grab a center. Part of me actually feels, you guys can tell me if you guys agree or disagree with this. I'm kind of happy they didn't get a center. Let me tell you why I'm happy they didn't get a center. Because now I know 100% all the attention and the resources that the Lakers have, where's it going to go? It's going to go towards the center, period. There was a quote yesterday from Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka says, this is from Dan Weike, now of The Athletic. Rob Pelinka says, center position will clearly be the focus as the Lakers head into free agency. Pelinka said the Lakers have been super active in calls as they churn over every stone in hunt for a center. Focus churns from draft to free agency, and we won't rest until we get it right. Okay. So that's where we are right now in regards to Pelinka. The reason why I like, in a weird way, that the Lakers went and got this wing, this 6'7" guy that can, certainly be a defensive player, can run up and down the floor, do all that stuff. Okay, cool. Awesome. It's going to be a project. I don't think that's going to stop them from getting a wing if they have the ability to go get a wing. But want to talk about every single asset for the Lakers now going towards a center. It's the worst kept secret in the NBA. What do the Lakers need? They obviously need a center. All right. How are they going to get there? What centers are they going to target? I don't know. We've talked about everybody. We've talked about Walker Kessler and Brook Lopez and Clint Capella and I'm just naming Nick Claxton and Jared Allen and Daniel Gafford. Gafford obviously re-signed with Dallas. Still can be is still trade eligible, by the way. But we know how desperate the Lakers are to grab a center. Every asset that the Lakers have moving forward, I have to imagine. Let me tell you a quote that Pelinka didn't say in some of these quotes that are out there. He didn't say, we really, really, really are desperate for a wing. He didn't say, we really, really are desperate for a backup point guard. He didn't say, we're targeting another small forward or a shooting guard. No. He just said center. So that means take Rui Hachimura's expiring contract, Maxi Kleber's expiring contract, Gabe Vincent's expiring contract. Take Dalton Connect. Take your 2031 first rounder. Take any pick swaps that you have. Every asset that's on the board for the Lakers is now going to shift towards a center. I don't know how teams value what the Lakers have. Clearly, a guy like Walker Kessler, the Lakers haven't, overly valued that. And whatever their thought process is on Walker Kessler, or whatever their thought process is on what the Lakers have, maybe their deal would have already been made if they really did value what the Lakers had. But nonetheless, every single asset that the Lakers have can now go towards the attention of a center. So that's kind of my takeaway from round 2 and my takeaway yesterday from the draft. Lakers take a little bit of a risk here. Who cares about the cash? I know there are some, it does have an effect when you do use some of your cash. I'll ask Keith Smith about that. But at the end of the day, I think the main point to take across is they're going to take their chances with a wing player. They'll give him an opportunity to obviously learn some things. At the same time, they're also going to clearly pay the rest of their attention towards the center and see what the Lakers can do in regards to that. All right, thank you very much for watching the clip. Just want to give a shout out here to one of our partners, the Wallace Firm. They are official injury attorney of the Sliwa Show and Hoops Talk, the entire channel. If you are ever in a need, and I hope you're not, but some type of serious injury with yourself or a family member of yours, I would like to personally help you by introducing you to the best in the business, Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Also got a URL out here that you can use as well. Just go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Thank you for their partnership, and thank you for being a part of the Sliwa Show.